Hi everybody, and welcome back to Teachers Talk Money, where I help teachers master their money in order to give back to themselves. Today we're going to be talking all about your retirement number, how much money you need to retire, and what age that might be for you. This might not seem relevant to you if you are super young, but I believe that planning for retirement is an important financial step for literally everyone, no matter where you are in your career, because we all want to be able to leave the traditional workforce someday. Of course, planning for retirement is something that should start at the beginning of our careers, because the more time you have with your money in investments, the more it will grow. That's how compound interest works. There are two big mistakes that people make when planning for retirement. The first one is not starting to think about it at the beginning of their career because they believe it is just so far out. But then, of course, the next mistake is that when they get to that age, they tell themselves that it's now too late to start investing for retirement. So it's a big mistake to put it off early in your career, but it's an even bigger mistake to talk yourself out of doing it over and over and over again because you just keep getting older and older. The best and most logical thing that you can do, no matter where you are, is to start planning for retirement today. As you guys know, I'm 24 years old. I have many more years of teaching in me, I think. And when I someday decide to leave teaching, I will probably still want to be working and earning money in some capacity. That could mean a lot of different things. That could mean moving to a part-time schedule. It could mean doing something related to education, like becoming a professor. It could mean being self-employed, or it could mean a different career, a transition in the type of career that I'm doing. But even knowing this, I still have the goal of financial independence in my mind and being able to retire from the traditional workforce someday. I also have a general estimate of when I'll be financially independent, aka when I can live off of my investments and not have to earn money. So how on earth can you determine an estimate of how much money you'll need to be able to retire and then take that to figure out how long it will take you to retire? Most people, especially those in the financial independence retirement movement, use something called the 4% rule. So we're going to start with that math today, and then we are going to adjust it as we go along depending on our differing needs. The 4% rule is a super simple rule that states that if you withdraw 4% of your investment portfolio every year, you should never run out of money because the amount that your money is growing makes up for that 4% that you are withdrawing. And the even more beautiful part of this is you can put the rule in reverse. All you have to do is take your annual expenses, so everything you spend for an entire year, multiply it by 25, and then you have a basic retirement number. The easiest way to find your annual expenses is to go through your budgets. If you do not keep a budget already, go to the link in the description of this video and get my free budget template because this is the perfect place to start. So let's take my situation as an example. My annual expenses are around $25,000 per year. If I multiply that by 25, I see that I will need only $625,000 in order to retire. So your number might surprise you. A lot of people think I need $1 million or $2 million in my investments in order to retire, but for many of us it might actually be smaller than that, just depending on what your typical annual expenses are. Now, I believe that just using the 4% rule and only taking into account your current expenses is kind of a mistake for a number of reasons. A really big thing for me is that I live in the United States and I plan to live in the United States even through retirement. And this means that my healthcare currently is tied to traditional employment. Therefore, if I retire from traditional work, so even if I decide to stay in education part-time or become self-employed, even if I'm still making an income, I will suddenly have a huge expense to cover month to month, and that would be health insurance, plus any other things out of pocket that I would have to pay even in addition to that insurance. Therefore, even if I'm looking at a 4% withdrawal rate, I still have to increase what my expected annual expenses would be. The average cost of individual health insurance in the US is $465 a month, which means that my expenses would shoot up from $25,000 a month to about $30,500. And this would in turn make my retirement number increase by $137,000, which is a huge difference than what I had when I was originally estimating. It's also important to think about what you want your life to look like by the time you retire. Are you going to have kids by then? Are you going to have kids that have now left the house by then? Is traveling and doing more expensive travel something that you want to do more often or in a different way when you retire? Are you going to take care of any family members at any point during your retirement? Are you interested in pursuing more education? All of these things are things you really want to sit and think about exactly how your life is going to look like, and make sure you're accounting for every single one of those costs. Now, once you have your number, there's a couple of ways to figure out exactly how long that's going to take you. If you're a math nerd, you can find a compound interest formula and you can put in exactly the rate of returns that you've been getting on your investments, and you can do all that super fun stuff. But for the rest of you, I think it is much better to just find an early retirement calculator online and play around with the numbers there. So today I'm going to show you a calculator you can use to figure out your retirement number and age, which is much more preferable if you're not big on math. So I'm going to throw you over my shoulder and we'll use my numbers as an example to show you how to navigate one of these calculators. All right, everybody. So the calculator right here that I am using is from a website called playingwithfire.co. It's a really great resource. They've got a podcast, a book, and they actually made a documentary about early retirement. So if that's something that's of interest to you, I suggest going here to watch it. So basically, all you need to know is your age, your annual income, and your annual expenses. And then they just take your current net worth and how your assets are allocated to figure out when you can feasibly retire from traditional work. One thing I really like about this calculator is that they take inflation into account, which sounds kind of like silly and obvious, but a lot of early retirement calculators don't. So you might be getting a much more liberal estimate of what you should need. And that's not something we want to do. If anything, we want to sort of over prepare for our retirement. So let's type in my numbers as an example. I'm 24 years old. My annual income after taxes is about $35K, and my annual expenses in retirement with healthcare costs, we calculated would be about $30,500. And I'm not sure exactly what my net worth will be at the time of this video, but right now it's around $35K. So what this calculator doesn't take into account is the fact that my income is going to grow as I continue on in my position. So right now it has me retiring in 44 years by the age of 68, which is super depressing and we don't want that. But let's kind of continue on. So say my income increases by $2,000 a year. Then by the age of 28, it will have increased to $43,000. And that puts my retirement age to 56, which is better. It's earlier than traditional retirement age, which is 59 and a half, but still certainly not as early as I would like to retire from traditional work. So then say by age 34, if it increases an average of $2,000 a year, my annual income would then be $55,000 after taxes. And you can see how that puts me retiring at age 52. And you can just kind of keep playing around with this to see how it works. Oh, and the other factor is obviously my net worth would be increasing a lot year by year too. So my net worth right now, which honestly is at a pretty young age, increases by about $20,000 a year. So if we started at age 24, we're now at 34. That would be 10 years times 20,000. Which would bring my net worth at this time to about $200,000. So when you take everything into account, by age 34, I would have a target retirement date of age 47. So you just kind of keep running the numbers, playing with them, and making sure you're taking every factor into account. Of course, is this exactly right? Absolutely not, because also my annual expenses are probably going to increase year by year. So you just kind of play around, but I think what it shows you is exactly how much opportunity there is, and it kind of gives you a really exciting idea of the possibilities for retirement, especially if you start earning more income or if you are able to lower your expenses. You can play with this in any way you like, and I think honestly, it's really an encouraging and inspiring and liberating idea to know that you do not have to be tied to traditional work forever. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. If this video was helpful for you, please, please, please like it and subscribe to my channel. It means the world to me that you guys come back each and every week to watch my videos, and I really hope that they continue to help you on your journey. Have an amazing week, everybody, and I will see you next week. Bye.